Thomas is a tank engine who lived at the big station on the island of Sodor. He had six more wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was a fussy little engine, always pulling coaches about. He pulled them to the station, ready for the big engine to take out on long journeys. And when trains came in and the people had got out, he would pull the empty coaches away so that the big engines could go and rest. He was a cheeky little engine too, and for no one engine worked as hard as he did. So he used to play tricks on them. He liked best of all to come quietly beside a big engine, dozing on the siding, and make them jump. He would laugh and run away to find some more coaches. One day, Gordon had just come back from pulling the big express. It was late, and he had to run very fast as he could to make up for lost time. He was asleep when Thomas came up in his cheeky way. He hesitated to blow his whistle, but the feeling couldn't resist him. "Wake up, lazy bones," he whistled. "Do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me." And he ran off laughing. Instead of going to sleep, Gordon thought of how he could pay Thomas out. One morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. His driver and fireman couldn't make him start. His fire went out and there was not enough steam. It was nearly time for the express. The people were waiting, but the coaches weren't ready. At last, Thomas started and headed for the station. "Oh dear, he yawned. "Where have you been?" asked the coaches crossly. Thomas gave them a rude bump and started for the station. "Hurry up, you," said Gordon. "Hurry yourself," said Thomas cheekily. "Oh, yes," said Gordon. "I will." Thomas shunted the coaches to Gordon with a rude bump. Whistled Gordon to the passengers. "Get in quickly, please." The passengers did so and got in quickly. The signal went down, the clock struck the hour, and the guard whistled and waved his green flag. The shunter forgot his pole and went to collect it. But Gordon knew this, and he raced out of the station before the shunter came back. Gordon raced along the line before Thomas could realize he was being pulled away. Come on, puffed Gordon at the coaches. Pull harder, said Thomas to Gordon. The train went faster and faster. Too fast for Thomas. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. "Beep, beep, stop! Hurry, laughed Gordon in front. The coaches laughed. You can't get away. Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. He was out of breath and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on. "I shall never be the same again," he thought sadly. "My wheels shall be quite worn out." At last they stopped at a station. Everyone laughed to see Thomas puffing and panting behind. Thomas was uncoupled, and he ran onto the turntable. He then spun around and thought of how everyone was going to torment him for the next few days. He then ran onto the siding, out of the way. "Well, little Thomas," chuckled Gordon, "now you know what hard work means, don't you?" Poor Thomas couldn't answer. He had no breath. He just rested in his siding. He puffed slowly home and was careful afterwards never to be cheeky to Gordon again. Thomas's train. Thomas puffed into the air, feeling quite cross. "I'm tired of pulling coaches. I want to see the world," he said. The other engines laughed. They knew Thomas was like this. Thomas sighed. No one understood him. One night, Henry was ill. The fittest tried to make him better, but he didn't succeed. Thomas felt sad for his friend, but then thought to himself, maybe if I could shut Henry's coaches, and if he doesn't get better, I can pull them. The next day, Thomas went around to find the coaches. One of them.
Oh, don't be so hasty. Don't be so hasty. Come on.
Then he shunted the second into place. Then he went back around to the other platform to wait and watch as the passengers climbed in. And the passengers did climb in. The trains came and went. The porter slammed the doors, and the guard blew his whistle before realizing Henry wasn't there. Thomas was getting a bit more excited than usual. And the Topham Hatt rolled in. "Sir, Henry has not come," said the guard. "Then find another engine," said Sir Topham Hatt. "There's only Thomas, sir," said the guard. "All right, Thomas, you will have to do," said Sir Topham Hatt. Thomas whistled excitedly, and then ran back round to get back onto the train. "Wait till everything's ready, Thomas," said the Topham Hatt. Thomas was impatient as usual. But before they could couple him up, Thomas started. Not the coaches. Thomas must have been excited, and the driver pulled the lever by mistake. But anyhow, Thomas was going. He puffed past Gordon, whistling cheerfully. Gordon laughed when he saw that Thomas didn't have any coaches. Thomas didn't realize that Gordon was laughing at him and not with him. So he puffed in the next station, and he stopped by a signal. "Father, those guys are nice too," he moaned. "Hello, Thomas, what are you doing here?" asked the signalman. "I'm pulling a train," said Thomas. "Can't you see?" "Then where are your coaches?" asked the signalman. "Oh no," he said, looking back. "Yeah, I've forgotten them." Thomas was so sad and he cried. He went back the way he came, and came back into Knapworth station. There was a ruckus going on the station, but this time Thomas backed onto the coaches. He was coupled up. This time he really pulled it. A few days later, the engines would laugh at him and say, "Look, there's Thomas. We wanted to pull a train. Forgot the coaches." They laughed. Thomas sighed. They still didn't understand. Thomas used to grumble in the shed at night. "I'm tired of pushing coaches," he moaned. "I want to see the world." The other engines didn't take much notice, for Thomas was a little engine with a long tongue. One night, Edward came to the shed. He was a kind little engine and felt sorry for Thomas. "I've got some trucks to take home tomorrow," he told him. "If you take them, I will push coaches in the yard." "Thank you," said Thomas. "That will be nice." So the next morning they asked their drivers if they could. They both said yes, and Thomas ran happily to find the trucks. Now trucks are silly and noisy things. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they're doing. So when Thomas bumped them, they would go screaming, "Ow! Ow! Ow! Whatever is happening?" And I'm sorry to say, they used to play tricks on an engine that wasn't used to them. Edward warned Thomas all about the trucks, but Thomas was too excited to listen. The trucks were loaded, the shunter fastened the coupling, and Thomas started. But the trucks weren't ready. "Ow! Ow! 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 Ow!" they screamed as their couplings tightened. "Wait, Thomas! Wait!" But Thomas wouldn't wait. Come on, he puffed as the trucks grumbled slowly out the siding and onto the main line. Thomas was happy. Come along, he puffed. "All right, don't fuss, all right, don't fuss, all right." right, no fuss, rumbled the trucks. They clattered through stations and rumbled over bridges. Thomas whistled as they rushed through tunnels. Thomas was feeling most pleased with himself as he puffed through Edward Station. He whistled happily to the passengers. Presently, they came to the top of Gordon's Hill. "Steady now, steady," warned the driver, and he shut off steam and began to put on the brakes. We're stopping, called Thomas. No, answered the trucks, and bumped into each other. Go on, and before his driver could stop them, they had pushed Thomas down the hill and were rattling and laughing behind them. Stop pushing, cried Thomas. Oh dear, what shall I do? As he saw the station where he had to stop. His brakes held fast as they skidded through the station. I must stop, and he shut his eyes tight. He skidded to a stop just in front of the buffers. He opened his eyes to see the fat director. What are you doing here, Thomas? He asked sternly. I bought Edward's trucks, Thomas answered. Why did you come so fast? I didn't mean to, I was pushed, said Thomas sadly. Have you pulled trucks before? No. Then you've got a lot to learn about trucks, little Thomas. They are silly things and must be kept in their place. After pushing them about here for a few weeks, you'll know almost as much about them as Edward. Then you'll be a really useful engine. Every day, the fat director came to the station to catch his train, and he always said, "Hello," to Thomas. "Don't let the silly trucks get you down," he said. "You do never know what they might plan." I heard him scheming every day. Thomas took his advice very gratefully, and he shunted the trucks quite a lot. Thomas used to wonder, what were these things? They consisted of a coach, 2 flatbeds, and 2 queer things that his driver called cranes. That's the breakdown train, he said. When there's an accident, the workmen get into the coach, and the engine takes them quickly and clear the line. The cranes are for lifting heavy things like engines and coaches and trucks. One day, Thomas was in the yard when he heard an engine whistling. Help! Help! And a goods train came rushing through much too fast. The engine was called James, and he was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire, and smokes and sparks steamed out on each side. They're pushing me! He panted. On, laughed the trucks, and still whistling, help! He rushed through the station and disappeared. Thomas didn't know what to think when the signalman came running. James is off the line! The breakdown train, quickly! Thomas was soon coupled up. Bother those trucks and their tricks, he thought. I hope poor James isn't hurt. And he puffed off. They soon found James at the bend in the line, derailed. His driver was patting him. Never mind, James, he said. It wasn't your fault. It was those wooden brake blocks they gave you. We always said they were no good. Thomas pushed the breakdown train alongside, and they soon got to work. Then Thomas pulled the unheard trucks out of the way. Oh dear, they groaned. Serves you right, puffed Thomas crossly. When the men put other trucks back on the line, he pulled them away too. He was hard at work, puffing backwards and forwards all afternoon. This'll teach you a lesson, he told the trucks. And they answered, yes it will, in a sad, groany, creaky sort of voice. They decided to leave the broken trucks and mend the line. Then, with 2 cranes, they put James back on the rails. He tried to move, but of course he couldn't. So Thomas decided to helpfully buffer up to him and pull him back to the shed. The fat director was waiting anxiously for them as soon as they arrived in the station. He was pleased to see that James and Thomas were all right. "Well, Thomas," he said kindly, "I've heard all about it, and I'm very pleased with you. You're a really useful engine. James shall have proper brakes and a new coat of paint. And you... you shall have a branch line all to yourself." Now Thomas is as happy as he can be. He has a branch line all to himself and puffs proudly backwards and forwards with his two coaches, Andy and Clarabel, all day. He is never lonely because there is always an engine to talk to at the junction. Edward and Henry stop quite often and tell him the news. Gordon, however, is always in a hurry and does not stop, but he always never forgets to say "boop boop" to little Thomas, and Thomas always whistles "beep beep" in return.